It all kicked off in the quiet of the night, a strange sound that seemed to creep into the lives of American diplomats in Havana, Cuba, around late 2016. Can you imagine that? A high-pitched noise, like a beam of sound just hanging in the air, popping up out of nowhere and everywhere at once. Some folks described it as grinding metal or buzzing insects crawling inside their heads. And then, just like that, it would stop, but not without leaving a nasty aftermath. Splitting headaches, nausea, dizziness, and blurred vision. It was bizarre, right? Then came the confusion, memory lapses, and that unsettling feeling that something in their heads had been scrambled. At first, people shrug it off. The U.S. Embassy labeled it temporary discomfort, but soon it became clear this was no small issue. By early 2017, over 24 embassy workers were seriously ill. Some couldn't even do their jobs anymore, and others had to be whisked away for medical help. It was a wild ride into the unknown. They called it Havana syndrome. The name stuck, but it explained nothing. Doctors at first suspected infection or poisoning. Others wondered about mass psychogenic illness, stress that manifests as physical pain, but MRI scans told another story. Some of the victims showed brain damage, the kind seen after concussions or exposure to directed energy. Only, there had been no impact, no weapon found, no trace of radiation. When the first American reports surfaced, Cuban officials were outraged. They denied any involvement, calling the accusations absurd. Yet in Washington, the whispers spread. Was this a new kind of attack? A secret technology that could target the brain from a distance. Soon, Canadian diplomats in Havana began experiencing the same thing. Then, similar reports appeared in China, Russia, Germany, and even Washington. D.C. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Trained professionals, often in government or intelligence, all describing the same invisible assault. One diplomat recalled being woken by a piercing sound in his hotel room in Guangzhou, China. He staggered to another room, and the sound stopped. When he stepped back, it started again. It was as if something was following him, tracking him. He later said it felt like a laser of sound. Another case involved a CIA officer in Moscow who collapsed suddenly outside his car, overcome by a wave of nausea and confusion. His brain scan later showed structural changes, similar to mild traumatic brain injury, yet with no physical trauma. By 2018, the U.S. had quietly pulled dozens of personnel from overseas posts. The State Department warned staff to report any unusual auditory or sensory phenomena immediately. Behind the scenes, panic grew. The CIA launched an investigation, assigning hundreds of cases to what it called anomalous health incidents. Then the theories began. One camp blamed microwave weapons, long-theorized devices that could direct concentrated energy to disrupt the nervous system. Declassified military documents from the Cold War revealed both the U.S. and Soviet Union had experimented with such technologies. They could, in theory, cause the very symptoms the victims described. Others believed it was a sonic weapon, using infrasound or ultrasound to cause vertigo, confusion, and brain pressure. But skeptics pushed back. Sound waves disperse quickly in air. They can't be so targeted through walls or across distances. Then came the darker theories. Russian intelligence testing experimental surveillance interference devices. A foreign power probing how far it could push U.S. agencies before being noticed. Or, the most chilling of all, that it wasn't a weapon at all, but an information operation, a psychological test. In this version, someone was creating fear, targeting people in positions of trust and feeding them invisible terror. Because paranoia spreads faster than any virus, still, the evidence was undeniable. By 2021, over 200 cases had been documented across nearly a dozen countries. The victims ranged from low-level embassy staff to high-ranking intelligence officers. Even a few White House officials reported sudden migraines and disorientation on official trips. One CIA officer shared his terrifying experience outside the U.S. Embassy in Tbilisi, Georgia. He said, "It felt like my brain was being squeezed from the inside. I wanted to vomit. I couldn't move. Then it stopped. And just like that, it was gone. But here's the kicker. The symptoms didn't just vanish. Months later, he was still struggling with memory gaps and blurred vision. Can you imagine living with that kind of uncertainty? Not everyone was on board with the whole attack idea, you know? Neurologists took a closer look at the data and found something pretty puzzling. The brain scans varied wildly. Some victims showed real damage, while others seemed just fine. And get this, some folks reported hearing that eerie sound, while others didn't hear a thing at all. Could it be that the fear itself was messing with people's heads? Like, maybe the initial cases in Havana set off a psychological domino effect that spread through the diplomatic community like wildfire. It's a wild thought, right? The U.S. government couldn't just shrug it off as a case of nerves, especially when you've got intelligence officers collapsing on the job. Fast forward to 2023, and after years of digging into this mind-boggling mystery, a classified intelligence review dropped a bombshell. There was no evidence of a foreign weapon or device. Seriously, can you wrap your head around that? It's like a plot twist straight out of a thriller. But hold on, because not everyone in the agencies was on board with that conclusion. They'd witnessed way too many strange coincidences, agents sidelined at crucial moments, and patterns that just didn't add up to mere stress. Some folks are convinced these attacks were the real deal. They even point to Soviet-era research on microwave auditory effects, which showed that humans can actually hear high-frequency radiation as those eerie clicking or buzzing sounds inside their heads. That's what they call the Frey effect, and it's pretty wild, right? There's this really chilling detail that's hard to shake off. These incidents seem to cluster around super tense political moments. Take Havana, for instance, when U.S.-Cuba relations were finally warming up after decades of hostility. It's like something was brewing beneath the surface, right? And then there's China, where trade disputes were heating up, creating this intense atmosphere. Oh, and let's not forget Russia, especially during those dramatic spy expulsions. It's almost as if there's a connection just waiting to be uncovered, like a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit yet. If this was just a coincidence, it was a pretty elegant one, don't you think? Fast forward to now, and while things have definitely slowed down since those first reports, they haven't vanished completely. New cases still pop up in embassies, hotels, and even government buildings. And guess what? The victims are still out there, sharing their stories, describing that same sudden vertigo and that eerie invisible pulse buzzing in their heads. It's like they're all reading from the same script, you know? It's bizarre how similar their experiences are, almost like they're part of this strange club that nobody wants to join. What really gets to them, though, is the lingering fear that comes afterward. That paranoia, it's relentless. They can't shake the feeling that whatever this was, it could strike again, anytime, anywhere. Just imagine living with that kind of anxiety hanging over your head. Even if you're a bit skeptical about all this, one thing's for sure, our brains are super delicate. It's honestly mind-blowing how easily our perception can get twisted, right? A little whisper of sound, a sprinkle of stress, or that spine-chilling sensation that something's lurking just out of sight, it's wild. Once that thought sinks in, it's like reality starts to warp and twist in ways we can't even begin to control. Crazy, isn't it? Just think about how much our minds can play tricks on us. Take, for instance, those moments when you're home alone and you hear a creak or a thud. Suddenly, your imagination runs wild and you're convinced something's there, even if it's just the house settling. That's the power of suggestion, right? It's fascinating and a little scary how our minds can create scenarios that feel so real. That's what makes the whole Havana syndrome story so eerie. Whether it's some kind of weapon, a psychological contagion, or something way beyond our understanding, it really drives home the point that fear doesn't always come from what's visible. Sometimes it creeps in from what we think we hear or even imagine. I mean, think about it. How many times have you felt that uneasy chill just because of a weird noise in the dark? It's like our minds can play tricks on us, turning ordinary moments into something much more sinister. It's a reminder that sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't see or touch, but only feel. And here's the kicker: the most powerful weapon might just be that little seed of doubt that takes root in our minds, making us question everything we thought we knew. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the scariest battles we face are the ones happening inside ourselves. We're all just trying to navigate this maze of thoughts and fears, and that's what makes this whole saga so haunting.